This idea of God's tent is something that's been hovering over my head for at least 3 or 4 years, and I could not figure out how to get it made. I knew how I wanted to make the tent. That was going to be silk. That was no problem. I had a big trouble trying to figure out how I was going to stretch the silk. I saw the Cirque du Soleil tents. Have you seen those tents? They're so gorgeous. I thought, that's the kind of tent I need to make. Well, my tent is not the Cirque du Soleil, but it's shaped pretty much what I wanted. And finally, I asked a friend of mine who runs a decorating business if he would make me a circle of plywood that I'd be able to use to stretch the tent. And he agreed to do that, but then he said, that'll be too heavy. Why don't you see if you can get a wire wreath? Those big florists have those big wire wreaths. And that's what I used. It's a big wreath that was a basis for some kind of a floral decoration. So that was fine. Then I needed to figure out how to make the people. And my first thought was to make them of clay. And I've made probably 50 people of clay, but they were heavy and they didn't give me the opportunity to make all the different characters that I wanted. It took me too long. I thought I'll be doing this the rest of my life, because I wanted enough people for it to be crowded. I wanted it to show that God's tent is very big because there are a lot of people in the tent or under the tent. So finally, after a couple years, I had this vision of people made of silk, which is what I'd been doing anyway, so it was perfect. And they were much more, I could make them with much more freedom than I could the clay. I didn't have to fire it and refire it and glaze it and so forth. So that was good. So when I had solved those two problems, I finally, and then the show, that was another reason that I needed to have a show, was to give me a deadline. So the three things together finally made it possible for me, forced me to get the tent made. And my whole idea there was that God's love is very large, and somewhere along the line, many people have gotten the idea that God's idea is to test everyone and make life difficult and to really make the gates to heaven very, very high and very difficult to open. And I don't think that's true. I think God's love is trying hard to make it easier for us to live well and to finally attain heaven. So that's basically what I was showing there, that the people in the tent would represent all the people of the world. I actually went to the internet and found a couple sites that talk about the village of 100 people. If the whole population of the world were reduced to 100 people, what would be the proportion of the different ethnic groups and so forth? And there are some very interesting statistics on that. There would be far more Asians than anyone else, like 64 Asians in this group. 60 Asians, 12 Europeans, 8 persons from Central and South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean, 5 persons from the USA and Canada, 14 Africans, and 1 person from the South Pacific. I tried to follow that proportion in the colors of the people and the dress that I gave them. On the tent is written, "People will come from east and west and north and south and will sit to feast in God's kingdom. Worthy are you, our Lamb, for you were slain, and by your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language, people and nation. Every nation God formed will come to worship and honor God's name. God says, I am with you. I free my sons and daughters. They are mine. I created each one of them." So that's what the tent is about.